Zelensky's comments coming after a very interesting situation with Donald Trump on Tuesday, in which the president said that he thought Ukraine, with the help of NATO and Europe, could win back all of the land currently occupied by Russia. The Russians currently occupy about 20% of Ukrainian territory. Again, this is a bit of whiplash here, but Donald Trump now seeming to side with the Ukrainians on all of this. Let's bring in Marcus Kolga, who's a senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Marcus, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time for us today.
Thanks for having me on, Todd.
Let's start with Zelensky calling out the UN. Are you surprised? Is he not, in fact, correct?
I'm not surprised, and yes, he's correct to a large degree. The UN itself, at least the General Assembly, has really had zero impact in terms of ending this war, coming to a ceasefire in this war, and a war that's been raging now for nearly 4 years. The UN could have played a larger role, but it's just been completely ineffective at even bringing the two sides together to discuss a ceasefire. So Zelensky's absolutely not wrong in that regard. There are agencies within the United Nations that have had a bit more impact, have been a bit more effective in terms of monitoring Russian war crimes in Ukraine, and certainly on investigating and reporting on the over 20,000 Ukrainian children that have been abducted by Russia. And a report this week clearly underscored that these children are being indoctrinated by Russia right now, and perhaps even being sent eventually to the front lines to fight against Ukraine. So in terms of those agencies, the UN has done a bit more work, but overall the UN has been largely absent from any impact or having any impact on the war.
We want to play something from President Trump at the United Nations and this U-turn on Ukraine. We know that in the past he has said numerous times that Ukraine doesn't have the cards, that it's weaker in the face of Russia's war, and it would have to give up some territory. Now he has changed his tune again and seems to suggest, no, in fact, Ukraine could, with the right amount of help, take back all the territory that has been occupied. Let's listen into some of that, and I want to get your reaction.
Mr. President, do you think that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do. Appreciate it.
All right, so what's your read on that, and what does it mean? What doesn't it mean?
Well, I mean, clearly NATO has already done this in the past. In 2015, Turkey, a NATO member, shot down a Russian fighter jet that entered its airspace. The consequence of that, a lot of foot stomping in the Kremlin, but nothing else much that came from it. And just over a week ago, we saw 20 Russian drones enter Polish airspace. Those drones were shot down by Polish and other NATO forces. And so, shooting down aircraft that enter NATO airspace, I mean, this is the only thing that we can do to stop Russia from trying to test our resolve, to test our defenses. And so, of course, with Donald Trump making an obvious statement that any NATO country has the right to shoot down objects that enter their airspace. I mean, it's something that I think that most of those countries on the front lines appreciate, and it's the kind of position that we need to take in order to stop Vladimir Putin from trying this in the future.
The other thing that was interesting too, and a post up on social media, Marcus, and I know you're familiar, is the president went on at length about the big economic problems that Russia has. So much of its economy now is focused on the war. That quote, average Russians are starting to pay the price for this here, and that it's an opportunity for Ukraine. So being quite assertive over the economic situation within Russia as well. Your take on what that means?
It's absolutely true, Todd. Over the past 9 months, Russia's oil revenues, these are the revenues that Russia relies on to continue conducting its war against Ukraine. Those revenues have dropped by 20%. Its refining capacity inside of Russia has dropped considerably due to these Ukrainian strikes on Russian oil refineries, pipelines and such. And so their revenues are right now dropping. The debt is increasing as Russia continues to spend enormous amounts of state revenue on conducting this war. Inflation is rampant. Interest rates are extremely high. And when you combine that with those declining revenues, this is a huge problem for Russia moving forward. And so it's headed towards, certainly in the long term, in the next year or two, if this war continues, into potential economic disasters. So President Trump is entirely right to say that what we need to do right now in order to exert pressure on Putin is to place additional sanctions on those countries that continue buying oil from Russia, placing sanctions on those refineries, those companies that are doing that, and to place secondary sanctions on the Chinese, Indian, Turkish companies, primarily Chinese companies, that continue supplying the parts for these drones and missiles that are dropping on Ukraine almost every single night. So, again, Donald Trump is absolutely right. More economic pressure is required because Russia right now is teetering on the brink.
Marcus Kolga with the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and his read today. Good to see you, and thanks for taking the time for CTV News as always.
Thanks, Todd.